today is really a potent time to do a lot of work around calling in and setting in our intentions for this next cycle. Eclipses come around every 6 months and they come in pairs. So this is the second of two eclipses. The last one was on November 19th. This one is coming up on December 4th. So tonight in about 11 hours or so. So we're already feeling these energies, and even though very few people are going to actually see this eclipse, the effect will be felt worldwide. So I want to talk a bit about this and see how everyone can look at the way this eclipse might affect you in your lives. So the eclipse itself is in the sign in tropical Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is the planet of seeking knowledge, truth, freedom. Sagittarius kind of has a wild wisdom about it. And it makes the ruling planet of this eclipse Jupiter. Jupiter is in Aquarius. And Jupiter is in a square relationship to Mars. And we also see that Mars is very close to these nodes of the moon, and later in the month Mars is going to be passing through the window of this eclipse as it moves into Sagittarius. So we can see the effect of that coming in the month, but for now Mars connected to the eclipse ruler through that square does bring some tension to the surface, because Mars is about action, will, aggression, war. And with that connection to Jupiter, there might be kind of exchanges of conflict about our ideas, because Jupiter is connected to wisdom and ideas and understanding. So there can be conflicts about it, or there can be kind of a breaking free from old belief systems. Just of the fact of this eclipse being in Sagittarius, it is something about seeking greater personal truth and freedom. And it is connected with this planet Mercury. Mercury is right with the eclipse. So Mercury is in its detriment in the sign of Sagittarius. That means that it is opposite its ruling sign, Gemini. And in Sagittarius, the focus is on the big picture, whereas Mercury is the planet of dialing in all of the tiny details and making sure that everything is kind of set up to work in a more practical sense. Whereas Sagittarius is about philosophy and expansion and knowledge, and wants to see things from that much more zoomed out perspective. So our mind in this time is really focused on the big picture, and this is useful in that it allows us to go beyond kind of the more mundane details and tap into a larger, wider perspective. It's challenging in that when we zoom out entirely, we might miss many of the details that are so important. And this can be losing things or making a mess of things, or it can also be kind of stepping on people's toes in conversations, not being sensitive enough to the needs and particular interests of other people around you, is a very Mercury and Sagittarius quality. So you want to watch out for that, while understanding that yes, our mind now is focused on much bigger picture things. I natally have this placement of Mercury and Sagittarius, so I'm well aware of what all of that brings. The eclipse is also, I'm just looking, and I have the image on my phone, so I'm zoomed in for a second. It's conjunct this thing called the Great Attractor, and it is a supermassive black hole that appears way out in that constellation, or the sign of Sagittarius, rather. And it's said that this Great Attractor is maybe 10, or I forget if it was 10 or 100 times bigger than the Milky Way itself. It's bigger than our own galaxy. It pulls other stars in. It pulls perhaps even other galaxies in. But this Great Attractor, astrologers start to connect this point to pulling in manifestations, as it is this supermassive energy field. when we have planets, or in this case, the eclipse conjunct it, it gives us the power to pull things in. So, new moons in general are always a time of setting the seeds of our intention. And as the new moon is conjoined the eclipse, rather, as the new moon is conjoined this great attractor, this is an even more magnified time for manifestation of anything, really. So, I'm seeing this eclipse as a great kind of reset, and it is the last eclipse that is going to take place in tropical Sagittarius. So it's kind of concluding this cycle of the South Node in Sagittarius. So, talking a bit about this, it's been in Sagittarius for a year and a half. It entered in like May or April of 2020, and this South Node is about spirituality, but it's also about loss, letting go, and release. So, what are we releasing with the South Node in Sagittarius? We're releasing beliefs, as Sagittarius is connected with beliefs and dogmas, ideologies. We are perhaps experiencing loss in things that Sagittarius is connected with, such as long distance travel is a Sagittarius ruled thing. Study, philosophy is a Sagittarius ruled thing. So our ideas have been kind of stifled with the South Node in Sagittarius. Travel has been stifled. We've been much more in Gemini, which is this practical focus. The North Node in Gemini is about what we've been calling in and dialing in with our focus, much more what we've been, in a sense, craving as well. So we've been seeking this very logical understanding that is the Gemini nature. And Gemini is also connected with entertainment and media and communication. So that's been our focus. And now with this last release of the final kind of eclipse in Sagittarius, it's really kind of concluding what we have learned from the South Node in Sagittarius. What beliefs and perspectives have we let go of and left behind in order to make way for the new? So, what other aspects are alive? There is a pretty tight aspect to Saturn, and aspects to Saturn can indicate challenge, but they can also indicate karma, when this moment can lead to long-term reward. Saturn delays, but it never denies. So when we work with Saturn aspects in a positive way, it leads to greater reward. So Saturn in Aquarius is just a couple degrees off an exact sextile to this eclipse. And this can mean that there is a deeper, more serious focus that comes with us into this eclipse. And also when we look at, there's so many planets in Sagittarius and in Aquarius, we're noting that this is a time of a lot of seeking independence, as these are both very independently focused signs. Especially Aquarius has its own way of doing things. So again, the ruler of the eclipse, Jupiter, being in Aquarius, highlights that. So in general, we are in a time where we are kind of seeking independence, seeking to free ourselves, seeking to have our own take on things and walk our own path. And this eclipse might be the beginning of taking a very different path in your life. What I notice with a lot of people and in the collective is many people are now being compelled to start totally new ventures. Perhaps it's taking a new course, perhaps it's starting to travel, perhaps it's letting go of an old lifestyle or an old community. And these are kind of really potent things that signal this conclusion of the South Node in Sagittarius. So starting off on a journey of traveling or studying something new are really amazing ways to kind of integrate what this cycle of the nodes in Sagittarius have been all about. Now, other aspects that are very interesting is the aspect to Uranus. And again, Uranus is the planet of shock, surprise, awakening, innovation, technology, extraterrestrials, and everything of that nature. Things that are kind of sudden and take us by surprise, but cause us to innovate and integrate something new. So Uranus quincunx to the eclipse can mean that this is a time where things might feel topsy-turvy and a little wild. It might mean a time when there's very new sudden insight, very new sudden understanding, especially because there's a Mercury aspect. It indicates an intellectual or a mental change. So be prepared for things to get a little bit wild. In terms of how this can affect the entire planet, the eclipse is taking place over the South Pole, the Antarctic, and it is the only habitable zone it's slightly visible in would be our South Africa and Australia, but again, it's only partially visible there. So it's a short eclipse of 2 minutes, but nonetheless potent. And with wherever the eclipse lands, that area of the Earth goes through changes for some years to come. Some say the number of minutes the eclipse happens indicates just how long the area of the Earth is going to go through change. So, with it being in the Antarctic, this signals even greater change for the entire world's climate, as the melting of those ice caps is catalyzing climate change all over. Of course, it isn't, as fixed and dry as we might have thought it was, or what science says it is. It's all really connected to the emotional topography and how the emotions of certain areas then generates the weather patterns there. If you look at places like California, there's a lot of unprocessed aggression. Aggression is heat and dryness. So what that does is it adds to the effects of drought and stuff. Places where the water it's raining too much, they have too much sadness, they have too much emotionality that is repressed, and so that manifests as the rains. And of course, it is all of these unbalanced emotions that lead people to behave in whatever ways they choose to behave, that also creates environmental devastation. But there's many factors at play, and this is something that comes up again and again because these are the times we're living in. And also astrologically, Uranus and Taurus being connected to the Earth and natural features and a phenomena, it is a time when there is a lot of change happening on the Earth. And not just this solar eclipse, but the next solar eclipse 6 months from now is going to take place over the ice cap. So this does indicate that there's a lot of shift and change happening in that realm, which may be unfortunate, but it is leading our planet to greater awakening, just like the situation at work now. So, what else is alive and active in the moment? Mars is quincunx to Eris, and Mars makes several aspects. Actually, Mars is exactly sextile to Venus, and Mars is trine to Neptune. Mars trine to Neptune is inspired action for spiritual growth. Mars sextile to Venus is connecting our passion, our will with the love, beauty, and desire within us, and using that in a positive way. And Mars quincunx again to Eris is a kind of conflict with Mars and Mars' sibling, Eris. They're connected in mythology. And Mars is kind of like this individual rebellious, aggressive force. Eris is a more collective, feminine, rebellious force. Eris fights for others, disrupts the status quo for there to be equality and harmony. So it's kind of like when things are stagnant and when things are unjust, we need to disrupt, we need to add chaos into the mix in order to return to order. And that's Eris's energy. And Mars playing with Eris there does mean this is a time where there can be some conflict, and this can be a time when there is some ruffling of feathers. So be aware of that and work with that in whatever way works for you, gently, carefully, knowing again Mercury in Sagittarius does mean that sometimes we can missteps with our communication. So let's look at some more. Oh, and another subtle piece here is The eclipse is with Vesta, and Vesta is a virginal goddess of the inner fire who makes the sacrifice of aspects of life in order to deepen in spirituality. So Vesta shows up where we have to let go of something in order to tap into higher frequency energies. And Vesta represents what we are energetically invested in. So it's a good time to plant the seeds of perhaps investing yourself into something new and letting go of something that is blocking your spiritual growth. When we have a very potent eclipse near Vesta, it is time to shed something that is kind of blocking our path. And knowing again, it's with this great attractor, same degree. So what we're letting go of is we are letting go of it in order to call in what really serves us and what we're really interested in and what really is going to benefit our greater vision. Again, Sagittarius being the sign of the bigger zoomed out perspective, we can use this energy to take kind of stock of our lives and see where we're going and what we want to create. And so maybe I can talk more about the Venus retrograde in its own video, but let's bring it into play here because it's something that's coming up. Venus is already in its shadow phase. The retrograde begins, don't quite ask me when it begins, sometime soon. And Venus remains in Capricorn for a while. And Venus is now almost joined with Pluto. Venus being this planet connected with young women, connected with love and beauty, connected with money, connected with sexuality, connected with pleasure, and connected with our values. And Pluto being the planet of the underworld, of power, of unconscious attractive power, of death and letting go, of obsessions, sometimes of addictions, of our quest for power. So Venus connected with Pluto as it is at the time of this eclipse can be a very potent energy for people who already have an aspect of Venus to Pluto, or perhaps they have Venus in Scorpio or Pluto in a Venus-ruled sign. It might be a little bit easier. So when these two planets are together, it does kind of create perhaps obsession with love or sexuality, as those are aspects of Venus and Pluto is obsessing. It can create a need to dive deep because Pluto manifests in the best way when we go through a shamanic death and rebirth and we go deeper into what might be kind of buried in our consciousness to bring it to the surface and own it and integrate it. So there can be challenges in relationships always with Venus retrograde, but especially because Venus is connected with Pluto, this Venus retrograde has a lot to do with seeing how power dynamics play out in our relationships. If we have been chronically in relationships that are kind of narcissistic, codependent, emotionally abusive, where we have very strong attachment styles, anxious attachment style or avoidant attachment styles, this is a really good time to look at that, and especially if it isn't being brought in your face by the universe or by the relationship, that's one of the best times to look at these patterns, because when it isn't so activated, it's a time that we can actually interact with the aspects of ourselves that are entangled in those codependent dynamics and snap them out of it without falling into the same loop again. So look at power in relationships. Do you try to take power over your partner? Are you constantly submitting to your partner? Do you have that healthy ability to show up as a dom or a sub in your relationships, to kind of know where your role is, to be able to take control of the situation and have healthy boundaries, and not let perhaps your obsessive need for your partner or a kind of avoidance of somebody needing you get in the way of relating. Now, as a Capricorn is related to power structures and financial institutions, anything with hierarchical control, anything with authorities, Venus in that sign can mean that there's personal and collective change in that nature. So if you haven't been doing your kind of self-care as it comes to like the paperwork and making sure that those aspects of your life are in order, it can be time to do that. And I think this Venus in Capricorn with the Pluto actually really connects to the way that our world has been in this kind of days of giving our power away over to the controlling governments, giving our power away to the way that they are using this virus situation to take control of the masses and prevent people from living lives as they normally do. So this is really intense in some parts of the world. And again, Australia and New Zealand, where the eclipse is visible within, are some of the places that have the most intense impact from these regulations. So we need to look at this, and there is this challenging aspect of the Uranus-Saturn square that has happened a couple of times over the past year and will happen again, I think a third or fourth time, on December 23rd. This time Uranus is retrograde, so Uranus is weakened. And that means Saturn, who is normally defeated by Uranus, has an upper hand this time. So this month could be a time that the regulations and the controls in our world go super intense. And with this Omicron, or whatever they're calling it, we are seeing that happen already. And this might just be the beginning. Over the next couple of weeks, there can be an even greater clampdown. But the thing is that the last time Saturn and Uranus will square, Uranus is direct and Saturn is probably pre-shadow. So that gives it a greater chance that Uranus again can defeat Saturn a final time, finally then move forward from that challenge and integrate it. And also Uranus has the support of the North Node very closely connected to it at that time. So in healing, we know that things get worse before they get better, because we need to feel and get in touch with the underlying core beliefs and negative energy that's stored at an unconscious level. That also takes place collectively. So that's kind of what we're going to be seeing with this Uranus-Saturn square dance. It's already been pushing to the surface the ways that people submit to authority or fight each other rather than understand who their oppressors really are. And what we all need to be doing is standing for our own truth in the most powerful, radiant way that we can, while also not using our voice in a way that will get our rights removed, that will prevent us from using our voice in the future, knowing that that's a very strong possibility now. And really, the key ingredient here is knowing, are we speaking from a place of love or are we speaking from a place of fear? Because if you're standing for freedom or standing for anything, but doing it from a place of fear, it's likely that that fear vibration will be amplified and you might lose your freedom then. But if you stand for your freedom, your truth, and what you want to see in the world from a place of love, it's much less likely that that's going to be censored. So take that into scope, and really, if you have the power within you, I encourage you to be a peaceful freedom fighter at this time, because the world really needs more of that energy to break through these struggles. And bringing that back to Venus retrograde, I think that's going to be a theme there. And Venus retrograde as well, of course, all of these aspects depend on what's going on in your own chart, and maybe I can look at that in a little bit. But Venus retrograde is it's getting distracted, sorry, going through this whole sign of Capricorn, and wherever that falls in your chart, it's going to bring about some sort of cleansing and renewal. And again, challenge in relationships, challenges related to power. It brings us to strengthen our own power And also, again, Venus-Pluto connection, it brings out the love of romance, love of sex, love of money, love of power, because Venus is love and desires and values. Venus will change our values. Venus retrograde will make us review what's important to us and what isn't. Especially because Uranus, the planet of disruption, change, revolution, innovation, is in that Venus ruled sign. That's already taking place over this whole Uranus transit. And this Venus retrograde is amplifying that potently, so potently. And see what your values are at the beginning before this retrograde phase ends and begins rather, and question what about in my values might change? What ways of seeing the world feel out of date? How am I finding myself in moral conundrums that don't actually feel necessary? And how can I change my values to adapt to this crazy changing world and do something more potent to help the planet find its freedom? So I can say on a personal level, if people are still watching this video, these eclipses to me feel like this really potent time of rebirth. I went through my Saturn return year this last year, 29, and wow, nothing could have prepared me for that. Maybe I'll make a whole nother video on Saturn return someday, but it was really like this kind of sudden attack from old patterns that I thought I was done with, and feeling all of that, those old ways of being reactivated after years of working against them, and finally coming to a place of realizing that I can finally move past this. And it doesn't matter how many times we cycle through the old, it's by integrating the new energies and the new ways of holding ourselves, the new ways of caring for ourselves, the new ways of owning our truth and being good to our bodies, that we really can create new paradigms in our lives, and that does go out and impact others. So having an eclipse on my birthday was like a total rebirth, reset, and it's just kind of beginning from that moment. That was the initiation of it, but I know that the real changes are rippling out. And here again, this eclipse is happening right as I'm having Mercury return and Mars return. Mars return is a little bit more significant because it only happens every 2 years. So I'm really feeling this fiery charge. And because there is, again, some Mars energy playing out right now, there is a bit of this aggression in the air for everybody. And I felt a little bit on edge. But it is that on edge energy that allows us to stand for ourselves, because it is that sort of frustration that helps us stand up for our boundaries. And hopefully we do it in that way where we fully honor other people and we fully honor ourselves in a place of love, openness, acceptance. Okay, that was a lot longer than I anticipated, but those are my thoughts on this eclipse, and I hope it really supports you in experiencing all that this window, this time and space can offer. And I do offer astrology readings. You can go to my website, dantestarshine.com, for more information on that. And I also do channeling sessions. That's mainly what happens on this channel, and then the astrology videos and whatever else I want to talk about. So stay tuned for that. And every Thursday I do a public live stream session. I have a channeling course that I offer, and it's signing up participants for its next round right now. If you want to learn how to channel and learn intuitive healing skills, again, check out my website. It's all there. And private channeling sessions are going to go up in the new year. So if you want to lock in the old rates for this last month, you can book a session now and we'll dive in together. And you can find out a lot more about that on my website. And I do free program consultations for the channeling course. So if you want to connect with me and see if the program's right for you, hop on and we'll chat about it. And I think that's everything. So hope to see you very soon. All my love, and thanks for joining in this session today. Just looking at the comments. Happy New Life Blast, let's go. Yeah, much love to you too. Thanks everybody for your comments, for your love. your support. Let me know if you have any specific questions, if this video or anything I do stirs something in you. If there's something that you want to see on my channel that hasn't yet been on it, also let me know and I can do my best to share. Instagram is the same, Dante Starshine. On my website, you can sign up for my mailing list on a little pop-up right there. I also post to Facebook a lot, Dante Shante. Anyway, okay. Bye for now, everybody. Much love. Have a great day.